High density big city residents. What's the craziest thing you've seen through someone else's windows? NSW. I was staying at my father-in-law's condo during a vacation with my wife. There's this annoying middle-aged guy that loves to talk to anyone who comes down to the pool. So we were at the pool talking to him and he pulls out this big toy gun. We're like, what's that for? And he explained that it shot out salt and he used it to kill flies. That's pretty cool, I admit. We let him shoot it at us to feel how much force it had, and it wasn't much at all, but I imagine those little grains of salt shred bug wings. Anyway, he eventually went back inside and so did we. Then we came back out later in the night to BBQ. He was in his home and walking around naked. Okay, no biggie. Just a naked chubby middle-aged guy. Not the worst thing I've seen in my life. What made this crap weird is that he walked up to one of his end tables, played with his junk for a second, then reached down and grabbed the salt gun, and proceeded to shoot himself in the twig and berries with it for like 2 minutes non-stop, then headed back into the parts of the house that weren't visible. TLDR. Neighbor showed us his salt gun fly swatter thing, and then later on that night used it to shoot himself in the balls over and over for roughly 2 minutes straight. Makes sense. You can salt your meat if you want to store it for a long time and not use it. Don't live in a big city, but this one person in my city has a cardboard cutout of the My Pillow guy in every window of their house. Best comment in this thread. Finally not someone being naked. The replies in this thread reminded me of a truism I heard once that I think checks out. If you stand naked outside your front door and your neighbors can't see you, that's rural. If you stand naked outside your front door and your neighbors call the cops, that's suburban. If you stand naked outside your front door and your neighbors ignore you, that's urban. If you stand naked outside your front door and your neighbors can't see you, that's rural. If you stand naked outside your front door and your neighbors call the cops, that's suburban. If you stand naked outside your front door and your neighbors ignore you, that's urban. And if the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's amore. I once saw a person in full Spider-Man costume just watching TV in their apartment, mask and all, like all night long. This continued each night for all 3 nights I was in the city. It made me believe that Spider-Man is real, but that he doesn't really have much to do besides watch TV. Peter B. Parker. Definitely the guy that uses his large screen TV to masturbate every night, with his curtains wide open. His pee interests are pretty bland. Just your standard pee start getting pounded by a dude whose face you never see. I'd have to actively try not to see this. That's how easy it is to see. Well, it's 10 PM. Better not look out the window cause then we'll see neighbor man getting his wank on. Get a laser pointer and shoot it at his screen until he closes his curtains. Lived in this one complex growing up. Kinda place where we were Section 8 housing, but right across the street were high-end apartments and I think condos. I could see into the kitchen of a bit of a foodie. This was 88, 89, so that term didn't exist yet. I was at the time learning to cook myself, so this was like a live cooking show every night. Then there was what I know was a mock turtle soup recipe, but at the time it was like I was watching someone just do obscene things to a few calf heads. Looked over and they were splitting them to get the brains out, nailing tongues to a board and peeling them. Gore all over the kitchen. I feel like this should get more attention than it has been. Split cow heads are a crazy butt thing to see regardless of context. Sort of the reverse for me. Miso can't keep her cloths on, and she doesn't care about the blinds. Completely assured no one is looking. Till one day our neighbor's blinds fell down. There he was, dong in hand, red as a beet and staring right at us. Record scratch. In Toronto, I rented the top floor of a house. The house behind us was set back from the street, and the houses on either side were almost in front of it, so you could barely see it from the street. They had planted tall bushes and trees so you couldn't see the hidden house, but we could. From our fire escape balcony, we almost never saw who lived there. I was having a dart up on the fire escape one morning, and I see their back door open up and a guy in his early to mid 40s come out in a bathrobe. He lights a dart as well. We give each other a little open palm wave and nod. A minute later, a black woman comes out in a bathrobe, looking to be naked underneath, and she takes a drag off his cigarette. Then another woman, a white woman, comes out, also in a bathrobe, and admonishes the first two for smoking. The guy puts it out and they all go back inside. A couple of months later I noticed the guy, the 2 women and 4 kids at the local park. 2 white kids, 2 mixed ethnicity kids, all around the same age. That dude was living large on the down low. If this thread's taught me anything, it's that I need to move to Toronto, apparently. When I was in college, our dorms were basically high-rise apartments. One night I was looking out the window, contemplating life, when I saw a man and woman having sex in a building across the street, like perfect view of everything. Their bed was directly in front of the window. I called my roommates over and we kinda just watched for a minute. Then we opened our window and started cheering them on. The guy glanced over, grinned and kept going. We were basically watching Liv pee. How close are your 2 places to be able to see the guy grin, lol. When I was a teenager, a friend and I thought it would be hilarious to order pizza to the house across the street and watch the confusion unfold. The confusion was anticlimactic, as you can imagine, but the aftermath was crazy. We could see right into their living room and the dad husband went freaking crazy and started screaming and throwing crap and then started actually punching holes in the wall and ripping apart said wall once the hole was started. We didn't do the pizza thing again. Oh, so that little sucker was you. TLDR. This kid was spinning the crap out of himself. I was smoking on a balcony with some friends when we saw something moving in someone's window. It was someone's living room and some kid, maybe 4 years old, had his arms out airplane style. He was spinning around the room so goddamn hard. He kept popping in and out of view, and genuinely lasted longer than anyone expected. I don't know how, but he must have been going for a full 5 minutes. Bouncing off his couch every so often. By the end we were cheering him on. Thanks, I needed that after reading some of these posts. 6 AM. Went on my balcony to get some fresh air. Saw the MILF of my neighborhood cooking while completely naked. That's it. I wish I was attractive enough to get away with this. At my old apartment when few people were home, I'd hardly wear clothes, and I love having windows open at my current one, but I gotta be careful not to flash anybody, lol. Hot naked Asian we called her. Tried not to look, which wasn't too difficult as she was a floor up, but with a raised kitchen and quite tall herself. Then one day I came into my room and my lesbian friend was looking sheepish. I knew exactly what she'd done. She'd been ogling and had gotten caught in the act. HNA shut her blinds from then on. Yell at your lesbian for me for ruining HNA. I live in downtown Toronto, and I've seen 2 people freaking out of a window. As in, the dude was inside, the girl's front half was out the window, and they were going at it. It was pretty freaking funny. Fun fact that's tenuously related to this, there's a hotel in Montreal that looks over the football stadium. If you're staying in a suite that overlooks the field when they have a televised game, you have to sign a waiver promising you won't be up to anything with your windows open, since they've had multiple people put on a show for the camera. An incredibly hot woman sunbathing topless on a rooftop in the middle of the day, but this roof wasn't taller than its adjacent buildings. Oh no, this was like a 10-story building surrounded on all 4 sides by massive high-rises. All told, she was flashing them out to maybe 50 floors worth of office drones, many of whom I'm sure were pressed to the window glass. She probably reduced nationwide GDP for the day by at least a cool million. I'm starting to think she was a model hired by the apartment owner in order to get more interest in the apartment so that they could raise rent prices. Was staying over at a friend's place in Edinburgh. Was on a pull-out sofa. They didn't have curtains in the front room, just blinds. And a balcony beyond that. The railing was all glass. The blinds didn't come down all the way, so I could look out to the flats across the way from where I was laying. Watched a couple have a roaring argument, and then saw him deck her. Woke up my friend and called the police. I had to get on a train in just a few hours, so they said I should go back to sleep and they'd keep watch on the couple flat until the police came. Not even through the window, but when I was at Penn State I saw a couple fricking on the balcony at about 3 AM or so. That probably doesn't count though, because college, in Denver, across from where I work, is an apartment building. It is well known throughout my office that there is a man 1 floor down that spends roughly 4 hours every day playing Destiny 2, while in his underwear. Recently saw him playing Sekiro naked, and people were more interested in his game change than they were in his lack of whitey tighties. He didn't seem to enjoy it much, because he was back on Destiny within the hour according to my coworker. I need to close my curtains. Not exactly windows, but there is a guy who sunbathes across from our office, 20-something stories up, on his porch, in the nude. Every now and then in the summer the call will go out, naked guy is out again, we will all take a quick look to confirm. Yep, he still doesn't know we can see him. The office has tinted windows, from outside they look opaque. He knows. Not that crazy, but my living room window faces directly at my neighbor's living room window. Yesterday, they had their parents over and were playing cards. The dad was sitting on a yoga ball and busted butt right when I happened to glance over, so I saw the whole thing. Got a good chuckle out of that. My wife once saw our smoking hot, blonde neighbor getting dressed in front of her apartment window. Full nudity. She told me to go take a look, but I was too late. Never did get to see those tea. She just wanted to see how fast you would come running so as to determine how silently mad at you to be for what length of time. I live in NYC. In my first apartment, my guy bedroom window was right up against my neighbor's girl bedroom window. Our windows were 3 feet apart. Neither of us had blinds or curtains. We kinda just lived peacefully, ignoring each other, changing, watching Netflix, listening to music. We were both single, and on more than one occasion, we both had guests over at the same time. We only finally met when we were both moving out on the same day. We got a drink together and laughed about all the shenanigans we had in front of each other. Never learned each other's names. Was the best neighbor I ever had. I once worked with a guy for 3 years and never learned his name. Best friend I ever had. We still never talk sometimes. I lived in a big city and made friends with a few guys who lived across the alley from me. They were out drinking on the deck one night when I got home and they invited me over. So we're drinking and I need to take a pee. Walk back to the bathroom and glance out the window to see a fire on a deck. Then I realize it's my freaking deck that is on fire. Barge in on my roommate who is asleep at this point. Dude put his cigarette out into a cardboard box. It caught fire, burned through our deck and then onto the neighbors below. Ducking idiot. I bet you said forking shirt balls. My deck is on fire. Saw a crazy guy yelling at UPS truck accusing it of being a Decepticon, telling it to show itself and transform. He was literally punching and kicking it. It was 9 AM. I used to live in an apartment building in the East Village in New York. I was on the back of the building, which faced 2 other buildings essentially forming a square behind my building. We used to call this space the shaft. Across the shaft from me there was a girl around my age, at the time, 20 something, who would never wear clothes, and she kept her curtains open all the time. I'd wake up and look out the window facing the shaft and see her cooking an omelette, fully naked. Sometimes before bed she'd do stretches in her room, naked. In the morning she'd get dressed for work with the blinds fully open. I swear I saw her boobs more frequently than my girlfriend's. One night I came back from the bars and looked across the shaft and saw that she wasn't alone. This was weird because despite her nakedness I rarely saw her with anyone else. She didn't have a boyfriend or anything. She was in her room with 3 other people, 2 guys and a girl, and they were all naked too. They weren't having sex or anything, but they were all kind of in a pile on the bed, naked together. I still wonder what her deal was. Was she a nudist or something? In any case, that's the weirdest thing I've seen through someone else's windows. When I was 13 I saw my neighbor's boobs. That was cool. When I was around the same age, I lived in a big apartment complex, and the backs of the units had bedroom windows and multi-tiered staircases that ran the length of the buildings on each floor. Well, this one lady always snuck a guy in her window this way and would greet him wearing topless lingerie, so I got to see boobs like twice a week. It was the best. I had just moved into a garden apartment in the LA area. Across the way was a small cluster of houses. The people who lived there seemed to all know each other. They would hang out on the porch together, blasting music, laughing, drinking and smoking. I would watch them from my living room window. They were my age, 20 something, but I didn't know them and didn't feel confident introducing myself. Then one day they were all assembled on the porch, gathered around a bucket. They had built some kind of contraption and were laughing really loud. Clouds of smoke billowed up. I could smell it from inside my place. I had no idea WTF they were doing. After weeks of watching these weirdos, I decided this was as good a time as any to figure out WTH they were up to. I crossed the lot and introduced myself. Turns out they had built a massively huge gravity bong. I had never seen one before. They offered. I accepted. I nearly choked from the massive column of smoke. They gave me beer. I gave them snacks. These people became my best friends. We had many adventures together over the next few years. The stuff of legend. I loved them. 30 years later, we still connect via FB. So if you have weird neighbors, I say go meet them. You might be surprised. My neighbors from across the street are the worst tbh. This girl hosts orgy parties that we can hear from across the street. One day we were coming home at around 10 PM. She though it was someone else parking in front of her house and came to the door completely naked, and we could see at least 3 of our neighbors were in there with her, along with some people we didn't know. The worst though was catching her kids, aged 3 and 4, mimicking sex on the patio of their house, and they did it like real pros. I suppose they saw their mom do it during her orgy parties. For your information, the neighbors constantly call CPS on her. We don't sit idle. Jesus Christ. Not even super high density. Neighbor behind me in new build homes. Backyards are small, so his back windows are about 20 yards from mine. My house was finished first. I watched theirs be built, met them as they would visit, talked to them and learned. Super religious couple who were engaged. They get the house on X day, but won't be married till the weekend after, so they won't take possession till they are man and wife. That's really all you need to know where I'm going with this. Oh, and I guess you should know, they never seem to understand the reason to get curtains. I swear to God I saw them frick, try to frick, learn how to frick, fail at fricking, occasionally get fricking right, and one time do anal. Over the course of their first 2 months, I mainly thought it was funny and just ignored it. One time was drunk with the wife and we just watched from the porch. Wasn't till my daughter asked what are they doing when we were all out in the backyard that I decided to take action. It was Christmas. I gave them some curtains. Went to college in a big city. Our freshman dorms were directly across the street from another university's freshman dorms. There was a hot girl who used to open her blinds, then take off her clothes and do stuff naked all the time. She definitely liked the audience. She was hot girl. Another kinda chubby chick used to have sex in bed near her window all the time. She was sex girl. Halloween comes around and she's dressed like a milk wench. Brings a dude home. So now she's sex wench. A few weeks later, sex wench brought a dude home, and after they're going at it for a few minutes, she's consoling him as he cries sitting up on the bed. Don't know what went wrong, but now she's mean sex wench. Some dumbasses in our school wrote in giant font on our side of the street, "Show us your tea," and put it in their windows. Even naked girls started closing her blinds after that. It only takes one bad egg. NYC, high-rise office in Midtown. Had an apartment building directly across from us, maybe 50 feet away of similar height. Every morning at 9 AM on the dot, this drop-dead gorgeous woman would take a shower, which had a window in it, and the blinds were wide open like 90% of the time. She knew what she was doing. That conference room was booked out months in advance, and we had a standing rule that you couldn't have reoccurring appointments at 9 AM for it. I'm pretty sure we made up expensive projects solely to snag it at times. Your management should have done a study into how work satisfaction and productivity were affected by having 9 AM meeting in that room. Work's gotta have its perks. This is about as far away from the big city as you can get, but it was still weird as frick, so here we go. I was heading up north with my family to a cabin we would rent every summer, and as we passed through one of the little towns on the way, I looked up at a 2-story house. The second floor only had one window, but the curtains were pulled aside and I could see a guy dancing in the window wearing nothing but a pair of tighty whities. Had this huge brown afro and a beard. I didn't know who Bob Ross was at the time, but looking back I'd say he looked like him. TLDR. I saw a dude who looked like Bob Ross dancing in his underwear. In someone's window, a woman masturbating. I was walking by. Window was large. She was sitting there going to town on herself. I walked away quickly. In a car window, a guy getting head from a woman in the parking lot of a Toys R Us. Out in the open, a homeless man fingering a homeless woman on the stairs of a metro station. Those are some interesting walks you take. Nothing. I'm so salty about this too. I deliberately moved to the city to see wacky stuff like this. Downtown Seattle and not a bare butt in sight and the many hundreds of windows I can see. Lots of boring people. Come to 3rd and Pike. Plenty of naked homeless people, puking homeless people, fighting homeless people, injecting homeless people, not moving so the ambulance has been called homeless people, and Jehovah's Witnesses and Scientology guy handing out pamphlets. Took a vacation to an adult-only private resort on a tropical beach. While the beach was beautiful, I had an amazing and huge private balcony overlooking the ocean, so I would go back to room around 4 every day, order room service, shower, and then lay out on my balcony until sunset. Well, being that my room was on the highest floor, I was totally cool with tanning nude. Walking straight from the shower onto the balcony butt naked is quite empowering. That is until dinner on the 3rd night, where I proceeded to walk into the restaurant and be greeted by a couple who extended a hand and introduced themselves. I say nice to meet you, to which they commented something along the lines of, well, everyone's met all of you already. Turns out, the adjacent rooftop pool and club overlooks my balcony. I was called the European nudist for the rest of the trip. I'm American. Lesson learned. I used to live on the 24th floor of a sky-rise condo building directly across the street from the W Hotel in Midtown Atlanta. I saw lots of crazy things. A Ferrari losing control and crashing into a row of parked luxury cars in front of the building. People having sex up against the windows. Convention attendees who were drunk. High, running around in rainbow-colored leotards in the middle of the night. Police chases that ended in the street directly below my building. But the wildest occurrence was in February 2015, at about 1 in the morning, and I was nestled into bed watching Game of Thrones, cuddling the cat and all around living the best life. This incident started with a very loud, "Frick you, punk butt," be followed by a few grumbling and echoes of people trying to calm someone down. Maybe a minute later I hear, "Come on then, come on." Then followed by lots of hoops and hollers and oh. Stop. I hopped up out of bed at this point and saw a group of about 10 people fighting in the horse show driveway of the W. They fought for about 3 minutes before breaking into 3 groups who went in different directions. One group into the hotel parking lot, another back into the hotel, and the last group headed down the street towards Piedmont Park. The police showed up, lights and sirens wailing, and everything was calm for the rest of the night. The next day I was out on my balcony smoking a cigarette and the same group came outside and started brawling a second time. Same scenario. Police came, but this time someone was taken away in handcuffs. Come to find out later that it was Bobby Brown and his entourage fighting with family over Bobby Christina Brown, who had been found in a coma a few days before. Sad stuff. I had a neighbor across the laneway but a floor down that was a smug prick. Tennis, golf, drove a sob, real wannabe classy but mega pompous. He and his ridiculously mega hot girlfriend were always on the patio drinking white wine, listening to jazz and crap. One day I go out on the porch to smoke a cigarette and I can see right down into his living room window. I can see the usual 2 glasses of white wine and faintly hear the usual jazz in the background. What was different was that he is getting absolutely pounded in the butt by this behemoth black guy. I guess he just had to have it all. Why is the rug all wet, Todd? If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.